What it is, y'all? It is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back at you today with more Danmachi. And today we are going to be talking about, we got a couple hours left at Record Buster, and I really want to give a big shout out to everyone that came out last night to the live stream. We were able to basically crowdsource a better team than I was even using prior. Mostly some changes in assists here, as you'll see, and repositioning a couple of our prior units. Now, this has worked out immensely because I'll go back here for a moment, and as you can see, I am now just about in the top 100, and I'm actually working on improving that score a little bit. So let's go ahead and go in here and do a quick run, and aside from the assist changes, talk about basically some major changes I've made to the stacks in the game, okay? So first things first, I am sacking Line. She's going to come in, she's going to basically do her first run, and then she's just going to kind of bugger off, okay? Now, she'd done this before, and this is fine. It basically gives us that early boost to the SA gauge that we're going to need at the end of the run. We will desperately need that, and Casino Seer is going to be an absolute asset to this, who we have tied to Mikasa. And that's basically going to ensure that by the end of this, we'll have 5 SAs in total. 5. Okay? Now, we're going to run that as a triple at turn 10 and a double at turn 15. And I'm actually working on a build that I'm hoping to have perfected by the end of this. That's going to give me 2 triples. But that, I'm going to keep a little trade secret. You could probably figure it out based on how this stack works. So, let's go ahead and jump into turn 2 here. So, we're going to use eyes, just like we have before. Now, I'm going to skip over Providence. I'm going to go straight to Carmel. Camale is actually how it's pronounced. I used to call it Carmel because I was trolling, but it's called Camale. We are going to skip over number 2 on Goblin Slayer because Camale actually does that as part of its stack. Now, I misread this for an extremely long amount of time. It says, foe singular, superfired physical damage attack plus 50% per each self-strength buff damage, self-strength buff. Now, when I saw that self, I immediately, in my brain, the way my, your brain wants to perceive that, is you think everything after that is a self buff, but it is not. It only says that per every self-strength buff, it's doing 50% extra damage. And since they can only buff themselves strength once, you can only do that buff once, you're going to get that 50% damage, okay? That's why you do the first attack and then Camale. Now, the other half of that is you could basically put a semicolon almost instead of the and. Damage received, attack all single target plus 20% for 4 turns. Now, the second one for Goblin Slayer here does the same thing, but he adds attack all targets to that. Since almost everybody on this is a single target unit, it doesn't really matter. The only AoEs we got are Goblin Slayer's one and only debuff, and then when we finally get Haruhime in here, her one and only debuff. So having that AoE attack damage isn't really going to affect us. Maybe when we get those 2 runs, but even then, Goblin Slayer we'd have to do that one first and then do the other one, as I had been before, and that was actually hindering me. I mean, almost 30 million points by the end of it, just because I was reading that wrong. So that is something definitely to be aware of. Now, the only downside here is Mikasa's not the best hitter anymore, and she has a double buff. You have to do 1 buff, then the second buff, and then her main attack. Now, her main attack does remove magic skill, or magic buffs, so that is very, very important. But, yeah. That said, we can just, if I had a unit, and I don't, unfortunately, at the point in time that's strong enough to do this, but if I had a unit that, like Goblin Slayer and like Katori, had a single turn buff, that'd be much preferable to Mikasa's. But we just got to buff Mikasa that way, and here we go. So basically, from this point on, we're going to be using Goblin Slayer's main attack there as his only real attack. And that's going to be that. Okay? Now, Haruhime's come up. Unfortunately, Eyes died. That is nature of that beast, sadly. And I'm going to go ahead and continue this here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do Providence. The only reason I'm going to do Providence right away is because I need to make sure that... Well, no, in fact, I'm not going to. I'm going to stay the course, and I'm going to go ahead and do Non-Stop on Mikasa. Mikasa's strong enough. She shouldn't croak just on this alone. I'm a little worried about that because you can see she's already halfway down, but it took 2 turns to get her there, so I'm not going to do Providence yet. If you're not familiar with what Providence does, we'll cover that when it does become imperative, but we'll get to that in a moment, okay? We're going to do Non-Stop. Now, we don't have a magic buff yet. Non-Stop's going to be important next turn to remove the magic buff, but that is Mikasa's #1 attack, and we're going to do Yosuga so that we replicate all of those buffs and debuffs. And that's going to be really, really, really important. And Yosuga is also going to give us a little bit of a heal there, so that's good stuff. Now, Akane is a must on turn 4, and everything else pretty much stays the same. This is that big debuff that Haruhime does, and she only does it this once, so you gotta be really cautious about when and where you use it. The biggest problem I had is because that debuff is imperative to keeping people alive. There we go. So, and that's why you also have to remove that buff on, the magic buff on Reveria, because if you don't remove the magic buff and you don't debuff her, we're all dead there. So, that does become important. Now, as you already know, turn 5, all the buffs are gone, so we've got to restore buffs. This is where Mikasa really starts to become a handful to work with, because, well, she's got that double buff, and everybody else has got 1 buff, and then they're just attacking. Mikasa takes a while to build up, okay? But only for the first 2 buffs. After this, it's not as big of a deal, but she's also not as good of a hitter after this. So we'll get down to that, okay? So we're gonna do Flame Healer. We're gonna do Cartwheel Attack. Goblin Slayer is just gonna stay with Smash, because Smash literally is a buff and his main attack. And we're gonna do Sheikah, because Sheikah is basically the buff Haruhime has. That buffs the counter and penetration rate. That's going to buff everybody here, and that's going to give Haruhime the ability to do even more heals, because, you know, when she counters, she heals. So, pretty straightforward stuff. There you go. And if you follow the previous run, nothing here is probably going to look a whole lot different, but you'll see a big difference in the damage output, mostly because of those assists. And I could cover all those assists in our own video, but most of those assists we've covered in videos prior. So, now we're just going to spam Yosuga. We're going to go back to Kameo. I'm going to do Ascending Attack, and pretty much, now everything is going to look almost identical to what it did before. With an exception. One big exception. Okay? Turn 7. Turn 7, I'm going to do Providence. Providence, avoid KO ×1 when HP is 10% or above. Once you get below 10%, that is removed, and it gives an MP heal to Katori. Now, she'll only need to do this once if we do this right, okay? Now, I'm going to put Goblin Slayer on a regular attack for this turn, because the biggest issue with Goblin Slayer is he doesn't have a lot of MP, so by the end of the event, we're actually going to need all that MP. So, because he's going to hit harder there than he will here. So for the next 2 turns, he's going to do regular attacks, and we're going to do Non-Stop with her. So, basically what we're doing is we're doing an MP buff, we're doing the normal stuff with Haruhime, we're doing a basic attack with Mikasa, and the main attack with Mikasa, and a basic attack with Goblin Slayer. So we're going back to Kameo here. Everything else stays the same. And turn 9 is where the whole thing really, really starts to come into play. Everything we've been building now is going to come to a head in the next 2 turns. Now, I believe prior I did Haruhime's big buff here with either Goblin Slayer or Katori, but the big problem is Katori is not buffed, and we need Katori buff because she's our biggest hitter. Okay, we're going to go back to doing Smash with Goblin Slayer. We got to actually then buff with Mikasa, and one of the biggest problems I had with my previous run is because I'm used to it, use the 75% strength buff, but because we're going to get 100% strength buff anyway, it's a pointless, basically it's a waste of a turn. So we're going to give Mikasa her second skill, and we're going to go back and do Flame Healer with Katori, and we're going to do Sheikah with Haruhime. Okay? Here we go. Now, there's that magic buff. We need to get rid of that pesky magic buff, but we're not going to worry about it this turn. There you go. Haruhime got it. This turn, that magic buff be gone. But we're going to go ahead and do a triple essay with Haruhime, Kotori, and Goblin Slayer. Now, it doesn't really matter which order Kotori and Goblin Slayer are in. Neither one of them really buff each other. But Haruhime must be first in this line. And this is where it makes a huge difference. Because Haruhime, or whoever's doing an essay, it goes in order of where they lie. Literally just left to right. So we're going to do Haruhime, Kotori, and then Goblin Slayer. This is that situation where the order actually makes a huge, huge, huge difference. If you're not aware of how it works outside of this, a lot of it has to do with AGL. Whoever has the highest AGL or has a fast skill is going to go first. In this situation, when you're doing special attacks, it goes down literally just by order. Okay? Let's watch this and see what happens. And it is important to do it on this turn, because after this turn, we are actually going to lose a little bit of ground, because, well, frankly, it'll be full. It'll be a quad essay at that point. But we want the double essay at the end of this, and we won't have enough points if we actually do the quad, so it's better to do the double now. Alright, so Kotori's going to hit for probably 1.7 to 1.8 mil. It's usually about what she does. Ooh, 1.6. Oh, that's a low hit for her. That is a low hit for her. A little bit of an RNG failure. Goblin Slayer usually hits for around 1 million. I've seen him hit for almost 1.2 in some situations. But I've never seen him hit shy of 1 million, except in one random instance. What do we got? 1.14. Okay. 1.15 basically. So that's not bad. So Goblin Slayer hit a little more than average. Kotori hit for a little bit less than average. So that'll even out pretty decently. Okay. And Goblin Slayer and Kotori actually have a combo. I've seen that significantly higher. I've seen that close to 200k. But, you know, I'll take what I can get here in this situation. Funny enough, the numbers here being a little bit lower generally works out in the end because of the way we have it work. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Now we're going to go back to doing Yasuga. We got to basically replicate everything. And we're just going to be doing basic attacks. Or I say main attacks. Not basic attacks, but main attacks from this point going forward. And the reason being is because everybody has their 100% strength and 100% magic buffs. Well, they're all strength units, but yeah. And we didn't really talk about it because we talked about it in the last video, but you can see how much damage base attacks are doing. So, or I'm sorry, main attacks. Keep going base attacks. They're not base attacks at all. They're main attacks. So, if you missed the first version of this video, we have debuffed physical down minus 50%. I believe physical and magic are both 0%. So we've debuffed the hell out of that. Fire is down, I believe, 30%, but we have it down 60% now because of all the debuffs. And then Dark is down, I think, 50%, and we've debuffed the hell out of that too. It's now down 95%. So that is going to help us out. So the things that you need to be aware of. This is why, at this point in time, we're just going to take Reveria apart. Now, the biggest issue is, on this turn, she's going to hit like a damn truck. But remember, we should all have a avoid KO in play. Also, we've got an HP regen. We'll see. I don't think that's actually replicated. I could be wrong. I don't think that's actually replicated by Haruhime, but we'll find out on this turn. Okay? So we're basically just going to keep doing the same thing. Go! Okay? Getting some good heals. Our MP is running out pretty drastically, but it shouldn't be a problem. Emphasis on shouldn't. Alright. Nope. Nothing really to be concerned about. I'm going to continue doing Yasuga on this turn. Everything should be good to go there. And yeah, so the HP regen is gone. And everything should be good to the end of the match, actually. So if I wanted to get really silly, I actually could just do attacks now with Haruhime. You know, that's what I'm going to do. We're just going to do attacks with Haruhime from this point forward. So, we're going to do Akane, and we're not going to worry about much of anything else. That does kind of negate a little bit of the healing, but because the penetration rate and the counter rate are still there, mostly the counter rate more than the penetration rate, but it's the same buff. Since the counter rate's still there, I'm not too terribly worried, and we have... and we also have the basically get out of jail free card in Kitori's second skill that had dropped a while ago. So, no HP regen there. Haruhime, I need you to heal, girl. Alright. To make sure Mikasa doesn't die, I'm going to go ahead and do Yosuga one more time. I was hoping not to. It's going to hurt my damage output a little bit. Haruhime is not healing. Alright, Haruhime, you've made me very unhappy. That was just a straight-up RNG failure. But, either way, it won't matter. We made it to turn 15, and we're doing the double SA. Okay? One more time, double SA. Let's see what we do. Usually get about 1.4 out of this. Let's see. Can we get that high? Yeah, 1.4. Nice. Goblin Slayer usually hits for right about a mil again. Maybe 1.1, 1.2 in really good situations. But it's a double, not a triple. Though he does have his 90% buff in play now, too. So, remember, his second SA usually hits harder. But once again, it about evens out because it's a double, not a triple. So, we got 1.27. Okay, that's very, very good, actually. So, I think this is going to even out. This is going to be a really good run. I'd love to see this hit close to 200k, but I don't think it's going to. 126. Yeah. I've seen that a lot higher. A lot higher. So, it tells me that there's actually still some room in this team to grow. Mikasa died, but I'm not too worried about that. We're still going to get... Because she died in the last round, we keep the same buff. And I'm now just shy of 300,000. Just shy of 300,000. So, I've got a tiny bit more growth in this... and I'm now global rank 105, so I'm going to go fart around with this, and I'm going to go see if I can actually get, if I could break 300k, and I'm going to see also if I can get the triple SA at the end, which I think will make that happen. So, that's the video, guys. Hopefully you learned something. Let me know if you did in the comment section down below. For now, that's the video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll be back at you guys with more Danmachi here shortly.